Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I proudly present now the aerospace session at the afternoon of the second day of GC. Thanks to GC to have this forum again this year. Last week I was at a ceremony. We celebrated 100 years of aviation and aircraft production in Bremen in Germany with Fockel and Wolf. Maybe you know these guys, pioneers. Helicopter pioneers, but also aviation pioneers. And my colleagues of the Airbus management, because I'm the leader of the Composite Technology Center of Airbus, Sabine Klauke as CTO and Christian Scherer as CEO of the commercial business of Airbus, they talked about the revolutions of aviation, the 4 revolutions of aviation. Maybe you know the first was to make flying reachable, realizable, the first flights exactly with these pioneers. The second was to have a little bit more passenger transportation, to allow the first commercial aviation. And the third was to make a real commercial aviation out of it, where everybody can reach an aircraft, fly around the world, connect the people. And now we are working on the first revolution of the aviation, and it's to become more sustainable, to come to a zero net carbon footprint of the aviation, but also to reduce all the other emissions. And that is a big challenge. But the good news for our composite community, for the lightweight community, is that lightweight design, lightweight materials, especially composites, are key for this, to reduce resources, but also to be really efficient and sustainable in the operations of aviation. And today we will have great speaker which show the contribution of their companies and of our industry. And I'm proudly present now our 3 speakers. There's Stephanie Patel from Daher. A big hand of applause for her. Then we have David Page from Lilium. And last but not least, Emma Claxton from Rolls-Royce. Thank you that you're here. And now I would like to introduce our first speaker. It's Stephanie. Stephanie, it's great that you're here. You studied physical and chemical engineering and finished your PhD in chemistry in 2012 in France. She's working now for Daher for almost 10 years, and since 2018, she's head of material. She will present now the thermoplastic projects of Daher to harmonize the speed and the eco-responsibility. And I'm really looking forward to a great presentation. Please, again, a big hand of applause for Stephanie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. So today I will speak about the thermoplastic project and how we can speed up our technology and also to have eco-responsibility aspect in our project. So let's have a look of Daher, for which it's a family company established in 1963. And it's an aircraft producer, so we have the TBM and the Kodiak that we are manufacturing. And we also provide some services. And also we are manufacturing some parts for different OEM like Airbus, Dassault, ATR. We are present in different countries, and we have more than 30,000 people working for Daher. In this context, if we focus just on the composite part that we are manufacturing, there are different kinds of composite that we are doing in different areas of the aircraft. We are doing some aerostructure and propulsion composites that you can see on the screen, which are mainly thermoset material. We are also doing some thermoplastic material with more than 300,000 parts per year. So, the question is, what are the benefits of the thermoplastic material? thermoplastic material have a lot of interest aspects. For the production aspect, we have some reproducibility and mass production possibility, like automatization for the layup. We can have low production time and with the forming process, for example. And we can also integrate some functionality on the part, like overmolding. There are also questions of sustainability we have on the thermoplastic, because we can have some recycling of the material generating during the production. We do not have any storage, the freezer to storage the material like we have on the thermoset. And we can have also the repair aspect on this material. So this is another point of view which is a benefit of the thermoplastic. All this material leads us to target what is the next generation of the market, aircraft market, which is the reduction of the weight and also increase of single-aisle production per month. So taking into account that, the question is, how can we have more thermoplastic parts in the aircraft? And what are the barriers that we have to overcome to put the more thermoplastic in the aircraft? That is what Daher has tried to answer. So, to answer to that, let's go to the background that we have. Today, in the aircraft, we have the metal parts. We have a lot of knowledge on the metal. There are a lot of handbook, processes, aspects, and so on the metal. We know which parts we have to put in metal, taking into account the constraints of the thermal and mechanical aspect. Lot of decades ago, we have switched to some parts in composite parts, in thermoset composite parts. And as we can see in the NComp or AGAT database, there are a lot of databases on the thermoset material for years. So this helps us to reduce weight, and we put this material for thermal and mechanical aspects. Let's go to the thermoplastic. If you go deeper in the NComp database, we have just the thermoplastic database available for more than 5-6 years. There was no database on the thermoplastic material, which means that today we are generating the allowables which are interesting for us for the part and certification. For that, we need to control the process and the production. And the question which rises up is, can we use the material higher than the TG, as we are not using it for the thermoset? So what is the limiting operating temperature of the thermoset? For that, we have decided in there to work in 2 steps. The first one is to work on the fundamental analysis of the material, which means what is the behavior of the material, not taking into account any part, just understanding the material. For that, we do some analysis on the stability of the material, how we can process the material, what are the limits and the using of the material in different environments. Taking into account that, then we can target the parts and application. This is the object of my presentation. So let's go to have some overview of the process and material stability. The thermoplastic which I'm speaking about is it's a continuous fiber thermoplastic with high performance. I mean, it's a high performance with semi-crystalline aspect. So what I mean with semi-crystalline, it means that we have some amorphous area and some crystallinity in the part. So the main thing is to tailor the crystallinity in the material to ensure all the property of the material. So we have done some DSC analysis. The DSC analysis can give us the information about the amorphous aspect and the crystallinity. By the changing of the slope, we know the TG, and by the peak that you can see on the screen, we have the crystallinity aspect of the material. So we have done some flash DSC analysis. With that, we can know what is the maximum rate of cooling that we need to not use in order to avoid any all the amorphous in the part. So with this test, we know what is the crystallinity and according to the cooling of the material. We have done also DSC on the part for different time and temperature, and which help us to have a diagram which is a time temperature transformation diagram. It's commonly used in the metal to know what is the microstructure depending on the time and temperature and cooling. So we have taken into account this aspect and the polymer fundamental analysis to have this kind of curve. And with this curve, we know where we have the crystallinity and when the crystallinity does not occur, taking into account an isothermal analysis and an isothermal analysis. With this abacus, we can know how we can process after that the material. So it's what I will present here. We have the TTT diagram, and we also have done some DSC analysis by high temperature on different temperature and different time to see if there is any degradation of the material. And we have the shift that you can see down on the picture. There is a shift of the peak, which means that there is a degradation of the material. So if we understand the TTT diagram and when there is a degradation, we can have a process window for the material, for the parts that we can give to the manufacturer to help us to have the parts correctly done with the serial production in control. Let's have an overview of the environmental exposure of the material. So we have put some material of consolidated material at different temperature and different time, and we have seen if there is any mass loss, any chemistry changing, any flexural changing, or a TG changing. This all data we have gathered, and we have put a model which helps us to understand, according to the thickness of the material, what is the time and temperature where there is no degradation of the material. So for example, whatever the thickness is, we know that the material can be used near 150 degrees Celsius. And then if we want to go higher, at 180 or 200 degrees Celsius, we have to take into account the thickness, the time, and temperature. But we have all these abacus done today in the air. Another point to take into account when we are doing some aircraft analysis is the fireproofness of our part. So for that, we have done just a database of the material with which we have for the thermoset, thermoplastic, with UD, and with fabric. And with the fireproofness, we can see if there is perforation, delamination, and any other defect during the fire test. So here you have the information about the UD peak, and also within a thermoset material. Both material has passed the test, because we are comparing with similar thickness the panel. And we have a database to know what is the material appropriate according to the criteria we would like to have in fire. Now I have explained some of our tests that we have done in fundamental analysis. Here you have just 4 slides, but it's taking a lot of time to do that, and we have more. And do not hesitate to ask me some question afterward. So for the application we have, taking into account that, we have the trampoline project. So as I told you, we have our TBM. So the TBM can help us to have a case study application of our process material to understand if it's working or not. So for that, we have taken an horizontal tall plane that we have in the TBM. And with all the fundamental analysis I told you, we have developed the direct stamping process by giving the process window to ensure that we can do a part with direct stamping. And also, we help people to do some induction welding to ensure that there is no degradation during the process. If you go to our booth in C32, you will see our full scale that we have done, taking into account all these aspects. And we have done last year a torsion box for which we have done some tests. Now there is another challenge. If we go to the engine environments, it's to use the material higher than 150 degrees Celsius. So the basic thing is, can we substitute the titan by thermoplastic to reduce weight? It's a big challenging aspect because we have to take into account the creeping behavior of the material. So for that, we are doing some tests by taking into account the creeping aspect of the material and defining some allowables to take into account in our process and manufacturing and design. The tests are currently done at 180 degrees Celsius. And the last thing, which is also a benefit of the thermoplastic, is to take into account the sustainability opportunity of the material. So we have in Daer developed a process, a patented process, which consists in gathering all the waste of the material. Then we grind it, we do a compounding of all this material, and then we do the injection. You can also go to our booth and you will see our TBM rudder pedals, for which we have used 100% recyclability of the scrap inside of our manufacturing plants. By reusing the scrap, we ensure also the performance of the material, and we also reduce the CO2 emission because we do not have to melt the material. We just have to grind and compound it. We are currently doing some life cycle analysis in Daer. So to conclude, what I have explained, I hope you get me. It's important to have the fundamental analysis parameters on the thermoplastic material. It will help us to shape, after that, the process, the parts, and how to do the certification after that. So we have identified different kinds of parts that we can use. It's the pylon spare for where there are some challenging aspects with the thickness. There are some ribs, there are some air inlet frame, and some torsion box, as I have explained to that. And within the air, we know that the weight is important to take into account, and it's a challenge that we are ready to take on. And in general, we also think in all of our developments to have a recyclability aspect to ensure that we have the sustainability taken into account for thermoplastic. So I would like to thank the JEC organization for letting me in and inviting me here, and also all my colleagues of Daer, because this work will not be possible without them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for this quite interesting speech. Thank you. Maybe just an announcement. After this session, you have the opportunity to take some time with all the speakers, also with me. There's a speak up zone for questions and everything you would like to talk about with them. Now I have the honor to introduce David Pate. He's coming from Lilium, and he studied mechanical engineering and material science in Seattle in the USA. And he's now working for Lilium and is working there for 5 years as the head of materials and processes. And we talked in the backstage about how tough it is to learn German, especially Bavarian, I guess, in your mind. Maybe the Germans know what I mean. And he is now presenting on taking us on a journey of the eVTOL of Lilium, especially presenting the role of composites. The stage is yours, Dave. Thank you. Big hand of applause for him.
Thank you very much, Mark. I hope that I don't have a German lesson after this. It's absolutely my pleasure to be here and be able to share with you a very exciting aspect of aerospace, and that's the eVTOL sector. This is something that has been in rapid development over the last decade or so, and I think just in the last few years, we've really been able to make a lot of progress related to not only the design, but also development, and quite quickly, the manufacturing and certification. As I let your eyes adjust to our legal disclaimer here and review the fine print in much detail, maybe I can go into a little bit of detail about what eVTOL is. It's a segment of aircraft production that is focused on electrification for vertical and takeoff and landing aircraft. It's something that has been on the minds for many generations. Many, many years, people have been dreaming about vertical flight. So our company, Lilium, was founded in 2015, and we've raised over $1.2 billion in our mission for pursuing sustainable, high-speed regional air mobility. We're located just outside of Munich, about 30 kilometers, and we have over 950 employees across the world focused on this mission. Our eVTOL aircraft is powered by lithium-ion batteries, and we have a very unique ducted fan design for vectored thrust. If you look at some of the performance numbers, we're really tailored towards the high end of the eVTOL segment with over 250 kilometers an hour range, 6 seats for passengers plus a pilot, and 175 kilometers. You ask, why is this segment right now being talked about or focused on? And really, there's an opportunity here in aerospace to provide a solution inside regional air mobility, something that's along the order of 200-300 kilometers, and that gives a very, I think, complementary aspect to the current infrastructure at a much reduced rate when you compare it to cost and time for existing solutions. Our design has basically focused on the ability for us to serve this market with a high-speed aircraft solution. If you look at globally, the predictions for aircraft production are very impressive and something that I don't think is very common in the current aerospace parameters today. Significant increase in production will have a very positive impact for the eVTOL and composite industry partnership. You're looking at a number of different aspects with cost and production rate that simply are not so strongly evident as challenges today. There's key development opportunities for composite suppliers and users, also for developing different material solutions on aircraft programs that have presented themselves, and we'll talk about that a little bit with material databases. And I appreciate, Stephanie, you've given us a good introduction already to that, so that's very well aligned with, I think, the composite industry and the direction in general. We're focused on enabling technologies in 3 different key areas. First is actually expanding the use of composites in not only structural applications, but also safety critical applications. That's something that I think is not so pointed or focused on right now in the current design space for aircraft. We also have a lot of advancements in our energy storage system, specifically with respect to manufacturing and safe design to ensure that the durability of these systems are put together. And I think there's a lot of principles that we've learned in aerospace, a lot of design principles, manufacturing principles, certification principles that can be applied in this area as well. Finally, we're looking at developing very high performance propulsion systems to make sure that we have enabling technology to reach our mission. So the question is, where are we at today? So I have a quick video. I appreciate that not everyone is fully aware of eVTOL in their aircraft, so if we could have a, I think I have to say, please play the video. So this was a flight back in September of 2022. And if you look closely as we go through, the flight envelope will increase to about 180 kilometers per hour. And if you take a note of the tassels that are attached to the wing, eventually you'll see a full airborne flight with the tassels being fully attached to the wing. This is our Phoenix demonstrator. We basically started the production of that in 2019. We've had 3 generations of that. And then now we're focused on our, I think there's something with the video here. So it's supposed to be a full flight from takeoff to landing. I think we'll get the final approach here. But this is all electric powered vertical takeoff and landing capable aircraft that has been essentially our previous generation, and right now we're focused on our Pegasus program.
Protocol is activated. Face out. Digital is up.
Very good, thank you. So as part of that effort, we're the first eVTOL company to have DOA approval by EASA to certify under the SC-VTOL category. And that's quite important for this industry in general because the type cert basis is quite new. It's something different and it's a new segment for aircraft. Looking currently right now, we're actually building our first prototype aircraft for this flight test vehicle. We're located in Munich. Our production facility is fully capable for manufacturing and testing, and we're looking at expanding our certification in this effort. Maybe I can take one moment and go beyond our initial discussion with material allowables, because this is something that is quite important, I think, not only for the industry in composites, but also for aerospace. And to understand where we're going, we have to first have a very detailed acknowledgement of what it takes for certification for materials. First, we have to understand what the design requirements are, looking at different design parameters for sizing, for damage tolerance, environmental effects, and looking at process and material controls. This is something that is fundamental to the aerospace design process. And I think as you look at the number of eVTOL companies that are on board now, many hundreds from, a couple dozen from before to now many hundreds, you're looking at the ability to pool resources and require a number of different test campaigns across multiple companies. So we take a step here looking at the building block approach that's used in aerospace. And you start with material campaign allowables, looking at characteristics that are required for tension, compression, the standard material processes, and that has to be repeated up through a detailed test campaign to eventually get to a aircraft level test campaign. The opportunity here is, I think, just to expand on the public databases related to not only the generation of material properties, but also looking at the opportunity for processes and standardization of those processes along with testing. There's a lot of redundant work done across multiple companies, and if you look at the current landscape of commercial aviation, that might be acceptable for a few aircraft companies, but if you look at the merging number of aircraft companies out there right now, it's very taxing, and it has a lot of detrimental effect related to cost, time, and most importantly, program development as it's related to producing new aircraft and novel designs. So using the existing infrastructure for the materials and process development, we have CMH17, we have SAE, material specifications. These are great vehicles to start expanding the use of these public databases. And this is important for two reasons. One, it gives easier access for material suppliers to get onto new programs. You don't have to understand the needs for multiple customers. You can centralize your testing, your material property, your databases, and ensure that it's accessible. And to the second point, very importantly, accessible to the aircraft manufacturers and OEMs. With increased lead times of development cost and understanding the material characterization, it makes it very challenging on the new aircraft architecture to establish the required design requirements required for certification. So in conclusion, I think there's a very bright future between not only composite industry in aerospace, but also a very bright future in eVTOL and the utilization and expansion of a lot of the public database that are in use currently, but also many opportunities to expand that into new material forms, new processes, standardization of the testing, and that enables not only a more efficient industry, but also enables a lot more utilization of composite structure throughout the use in the industry as well. I very much thank you for the warm welcome. It's very nice to have the chance to share our passion with you, and we look forward to answering questions later after.
David, thank you so much. I guess that is passion of engineering, and that is also pioneering beyond the boundaries. And thank you. And now the next passionate speaker will present the Rolls-Royce ULTRAFan and the usage of composites. I'm proudly present now Emma Claxton, which is coming from Rolls-Royce. She's working there for over 27 years, and she has a doctorate in ceramics. And since 2012, she has worked on the composite fan and the ULTRAFan projects at Rolls-Royce. Emma, the stage is yours. We are really looking forward to a quite interesting presentation. And again, a big hand of applause for Emma.
Hello, and thank you very much for that introduction, Mark. What I'm hoping to be able to share with you in the next few minutes is a look at some of the engine testing we've been doing on our ULTRAFan demonstrator. I have a brief look at some of the composite manufacturing that we've been involved with, and then I'd like to give you a bit of a flavor of some of the component validation tests that we've been working on the ULTRAFan fan blade. So to start with the ULTRAFan engine, this is sort of complete new area for Rolls-Royce. We've got a completely new engine architecture that should be scalable in the future from 25,000 to 110,000 pounds of thrust. It's a rather special engine for us. It's the first time in many, many years that Rolls-Royce has had the opportunity to look at so many new technologies all at one time. So our world's biggest engine demonstrator with a 140-inch fan diameter, that's about 3 meters 40. And to put that into context, that diameter is large enough to drive a London underground train through the center of it. So we're talking about quite a big beast. And what we've been able to do here is pull together lots of new technologies that we've been working, some of them we've been working on and we will be deploying through our Trent fleet. Others are totally new for ULTRAFan. In particular, there's a 64 megawatt power gearbox that sits just behind that fan, the purpose of which is to be able to slow down the fan, which has allowed us to go to that large and efficient fan diameter without having supersonic tip speeds. We have a total new core for the engine, which includes a lean burn combustor, and with that comes much lower NOx emissions. We've also incorporated a new high-speed intermediate pressure turbine, new control systems, and of course the thing that's of interest to everybody at JEC World is a new composite fan. So after many years of design, manufacture, working with suppliers all over the world, we've been able to build this demonstrator engine and bring it to test. It ran on testbed 80 through on and off through most of 2023. It's an incredibly heavily instrumented engine. That means that even though we've come off test now, we have still got a long period of data analysis and a lot more learning to come from the engine, even though it's not actually running at the moment. We have completed 100% sustainable aviation fuel compatibility testing on this engine. In fact, the very first time it ran even just up to idle was on sustainable aviation fuel, which must be a first for Rolls-Royce. We've also ran the engine to maximum power, and the big driver for having put together this engine in the first place has been efficiency. And where we've got to at this stage is that the UltraFan demonstrator engine is in fact 25% more efficient than the first Trent engine we launched in the 1990s. So how do you test the world's largest demonstrator engine? Well, you end up having to build a totally new testbed. Testbed 80, which you can see under construction in the top image, is the world's largest and smartest testbed. The hall where you actually put the engine and do your testing is larger than a football pitch. And to build this, it required over 3,000 tons of steel and enough concrete to fill 11 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It allows us to measure up to 10,000 parameters, and we can sample at a rate of 200,000 samples per second. It has enormous fuel tank capabilities underground, and one of those allowed us to test on SAF. Other things to know about the facility are it's going to give us the ability to X-ray an entire engine at a rate of 30 times a second. The other images you see here are actually the UltraFan engine itself when it was initially installed into testbed 80. And you can see it sort of being put up onto the test stand. And I think the thing having stood in testbed 80 is suddenly once you see the engine in there, it no longer looks large. It sort of looks all in proportion. And I think this gives you an idea of how big the testbed is. Okay, to move on a little bit to our composite manufacturing. We're making our composite fan blades and fan case at our composite technology facility, which is based in Bristol in the UK on a Rolls-Royce site. And we're making their fan blades by automated fiber placement, AFP. And I think what you can see in the right-hand image is we're laying up quite a complex shape. There's quite a complex curvature to this fan blade. And to give you an idea of size, it comes up to about my chin when it's standing on its root. We're using a Hexcel M91 carbon fiber reinforced high toughness and impact resistant epoxy prepreg. This is then autoclave cured, and following that we're fitting a titanium leading edge. That leading edge is there for erosion protection. It gives us protection against foreign object damage, and also gives us protection against bird strike in operation. The composite technology facility that we have got is also stuffed full of all sorts of nice toys for NDT and metrology techniques. And what you see in the bottom left is our an UltraFan blade sitting in the GOM metrology inspection cell. Okay, so the fan case. I'm not actually going to talk much about the fan case today because all the testing we've been doing so far is on UltraFan is on the blades. But what you see here in the left-hand image is automated tape laying of a small trial size case. We use this for impact validation testing. And what you see on the right-hand side is just you get an idea of scale of an UltraFan fan case as it's being laid up. maybe worth pointing out that we've moved to composites for this, primarily to reduce the weight of the composite of the fan system on UltraFan. Excuse me. By reducing the weight of the blade, there is a knock-on effect that we can actually also reduce the weight of the containment fan case. And then you get subsequent knock-on effects. It allows us to take even more weight out of the engine. And then there's another knock-on effect where the airframer can also remove weight from the airframe by having a lighter fan on the engine. Okay, to move back to the blades and have a quick look at some of the rig testing we've been doing over the last few months. Okay, a couple of slides the wrong way around. I apologize. Well, I'll show you here coming up. So when we do single arm bird testing, we do this in order to sort of look at a range of bird sizes that may impact the fan during takeoff or flight. And we do this to look within the certification requirements that are set by the authorities. So we look at a range of bird sizes, sort of covering sort of medium to large birds, large flocking birds. And we do all our initial work using gelatin birds, and we spin a single blade in a holder in a vacuum vessel. The ability, the control we have over our bird launcher means that we can control the velocity, the trajectory, the very, very specific timing and the position in which we impact the blade. And we're all the time recording this with high-speed imaging at 12,000 frames per second. We tend to look at sort of have about 6 to 10 cameras, depending on the type of testing in there. And what I'm about to show you is a couple of videos. They show you, this is from the same bird test, but just different angles. And what you will see is an UltraFan blade being impacted and what happens to the gelatin as that breaks up, as it's sliced, breaks up on the test. So if I will just run through these. And the second one is shorter, but it just gives you a close-up of the actual impact. Okay, this was the slide I thought I was going to talk over a minute ago. The other testing I would like to sort of briefly talk about now is we have, just before Christmas, we did our trailing blade integrity test. For UltraFan, this has meant a completely new rig, which we have designed and built in association with ITP Aero. The testing is carried out in a vacuum vessel at our Mechanical Test Operations Center, MTOC, on the Rolls-Royce site in Dahlewitz in Germany. What you see is we run with 2 sets of 3 diametrically opposite blades. The image here was actually taken during the commissioning phase, so the release blade isn't fitted. We then also have in there between the blades, the annulus line is filled with a set of composite annulus fillers. These are all attached to a rather large UltraFan titanium fan disc, And the white sort of stubby blades that you see in there are actually rather heavy lumps of steel that were fitted to ensure the stressing on the disc was correct. So this testing is carried out. You release the first blade simultaneously on each side with an explosive charge. And what we then look at is the behavior of the trailing blades. And at the moment, we're still going through all the post-test analysis from this test. As I said, 2023 was a very big year for Rolls-Royce and the UltraFan project. And as such, we were very lucky to pick up a couple of awards. We were awarded the Aerospace Technology Institute Project of the Year, and we also picked up an award for this work from Aviation Week. Anyway, I'd like to just thank our main sort of supporters of this work, the ATI and Innovate UK, and thank you all for listening.
Emma, thank you so much for those impressive insights. Now we will have a short panel discussion on some topics. And as I mentioned, afterwards there's a chance to meet the speakers in the speaker corner. So maybe I will start with you, David. In your mind, what are the future prospects for composites in aerospace industry? Maybe especially in the future and advanced air mobility, and how they will continue to shape the future of aviation.
Yeah, I think there's two things that really come into play. First is production rate. So having significant increase in production rate, perhaps using inspiration from automotive or other high production rate areas, and bringing that into quality standards that are required for safe flight and repair. I think that's the main area. But eventually this whole industry will have a large push on cost. And I think labor and materials and automation and the volumes that we are hoping to see in this industry will really push a lot of new innovation inside not only material selection, but also the processing as well. That would be two things contained, I think, quite closely together.
Okay. Emma, with your experience, what are the biggest challenges in the usage of composites? Maybe especially when it comes to life cycle assessment, when it comes to recycling?
Well, I think we've all got a challenge with recycling and end of life. But I think also we need to be very aware of the energy that we're sort of baking into these processes in the first place. And I think that's a challenge for sort of all of us in the industry, the amount of wastage that we can have during, the layup of these processes and things. And it's something that we all have a responsibility for and all need to be looking at.
Yeah. And when it comes to fuel efficiency, energy efficiency, reduction of emissions, what do you think, Stephanie? What is the biggest contribution? Is it just lightweighting, or is there more than being light, maybe functional?
We can have some functional aspect to reduce the CO2 emission by doing in one step the process of the parts. It could help us, but there is also to take into account the waste and also the using of the parts at the end of the life. So this is also another matter of concern in general.
We have now here different companies, and we had this discussion also in other formats. Especially in Europe, we are faced with a demographic change. So we are speaking about not only young talents, people which are working in industries like the aerospace industry. And the question is how we can attract younger people, but in total people for this industry, for the aerospace industry, but especially for composites, materials, processes. Um, what do you think? Maybe as a startup, it's a little bit different, like an engine OEM, but maybe you can share your perspectives on this.
Yeah, I think the horizons for new engineers are phenomenal today. And if you look at the opportunities for us to establish that talent, it requires programs and different access to programs who have this as part of their work, embedded into their work. So the certification effort from multiple companies, I think in 10 years' time, will really reinvigorate the ability to bring new talent on board, and essentially put really high value add projects in engineers that are coming out of school in a way that is going to accelerate that knowledge base. So I have a very optimistic outlook, I think, because of the number of programs that are being established and also the accessibility for those new engineers to be part of a program with really impactful tasks straight away.
Yeah. Am I sharing this perspective, or it's a little bit different from your side?
No, I think it's similar. It's very exciting out there. There's a lot of new technology being employed, and I suppose perhaps we do have the advantage of sort of the Rolls-Royce name that always attracts people, but not, with composites and the UltraFan engine. There's a lot of new exciting technology, and it's not just the application itself, but it's all stages through the manufacture, the inspection techniques, working with other companies to make sure that we're doing that to the best. The analysis techniques and the modeling that we've developed with institutions like the University of Oxford and the University of Bristol. There's exciting steps all along the way, and I think there's fantastic careers to be had for people.
Yeah. You mentioned also a lot of challenges, potentials. That's right. In your mind, Stephanie, is there more improvement for have more knowledge transfer cross industry like? So the aerospace industry is really also pushing composites up from the beginning, especially light. That's the key word, yes, for us, because we have a big usage rate. But how we can improve, how we can also foster the knowledge transfer between the different industries, because here are so many other industries which also want to use composites, maybe have not the capacities to make such a development, such a qualification, certification. How we can improve it, or how we can foster it more?
The first thing is that we have all the open source data available with the NCAMP, as also David said. It's interesting to have that. And to be honest, we are pushing composite in aerospace, but we are aware that composite will not replace every part, so in general. And other point is how we can go faster by using composite. We can also go to automotive aspect by using fast cure, which could be also interesting. And in general, what is the main point is to have the allowables for all the process that we are using. If we have just the KDF, the not done factor for each process, we can then use the NCAMP results and put this KDF to improve our process and certification.
Yeah.
So it will be easier for us in the future.
For me, it would be really interesting to hear your perspective, because you talked about numbers which are far away from the actual aviation business. We have a ramp up also at Airbus, as you know, but you're talking about thousands of systems per year. It is more linked to the automotive industry or something in between?
Yeah, I don't think the numbers are quite satisfactory for the automotive engineers out there, but it's definitely a generational leap from what current aerospace expectations are. There's a number of different systems, and I think you have to look at the whole supply chain. It's not just a material system or the material properties for that. It's the supply chain looking at quality control, understanding acceptance criteria, ultimately rolling that into pass-fail criteria on the processing side, and having robust inspection criteria. So I think it's a holistic system where you could take a lot of grounding principles, fundamental principles from other industries, but it has to be tailored to the different requirements for aerospace, which I think we're still learning. And there's definitely opportunity there. I don't think we have all the solutions today, but I don't think the challenges are insurmountable. We just need to put a bit of time and energy into solving those.
Okay, thank you. Now we're at the end. A really big thank you for our three speakers. Big hand of applause for them. Also a big thank you to GC to having this platform to present these insights, and at the end also, and finally, a big thank you to this audience. And now you are really invited to speak with us and to meet us in the Speaker's Corner. Thank you so much. Have a nice day, and also a good trade fair. Thank you.